Welcome to the WellCast. The world has a lot to say. We're bringing a biblical perspective to those conversations.
Welcome back to another episode of the WellCast. Usually, I am joined by the one and only Jordan Hogue, but
we love Jordan.
We do.
Best boss ever.
But today we have a special crossover episode for you all with our friends from the Well StudentCast. And if you haven't heard the stuff that they're putting out there, it's so good. Our students are loving it. Their parents are loving it. So check them out. You can find them. There's a little plug. You can find them wherever podcasts are sold or just freely given out there.
We don't make any money.
Yeah, I'm here with our high school pastor here at the Well, K.A.O. Yoshikawa.
What's up, guys?
And his amazing. Basically, she does everything.
Honestly,
I wanted to share her title, but
without her.
Yeah, she's the program coordinator and women's shepherd. Mm-hmm. And so Brynn McIlhatton is here, and just excited to talk through this topic with you guys today. Grateful that you're joining us. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, you guys work together too much.
In sync.
Hey, well, today we're going to talk about a topic that if you were born on planet Earth, you need to listen to, because honestly, I don't know if there's a topic that's more relevant in our society than the topic of fear of failure. Yeah. And I know for me, when I was growing up, so a little story to kick us off. I was in fourth grade, and I got my first B.
Whoa!
First B ever. Like, I
deal.
was like A. It kind of started to become who I was. Yeah. And I got a B, and I didn't think I deserved that B. And you know what I did? I cried like a baby. Like I was at home crying. I'm like, Mom, it's not fair. There's I don't deserve this. I did the work. I'm like fourth grade. And already by fourth grade, we're starting to define ourselves by what we do, what we accomplish. Yeah. And I know for me, later in life, that's something that I still deal with. And so what do you guys think about? I mean, we literally live in a society that starts telling you your worth and value is tied to what you do and what you accomplish from the very early age. What do you guys think about a society that says stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's such a trend in just this idea of that we are what we do and not in who we are or who like our creator designed us to be. While you're talking, I'm just thinking about the idea. I would say almost like 100% of our sixth grade girls in WSM last year said they had some sort of like identification of anxiety over their grades and over what their college they would go to. And I think there's just such a like identity around what we do and how we perform. And so that's really hard to combat.
Yeah, I think even for me, like when you were saying that reminded me of like, I was like, I need to make sure I get good grades, because then that means my like parents would love me. And then if I don't get good grades, then I'm not sure I'm loved.
So reward was tied to your performance.
Yeah.
So like how and not just reward, but like love of your parents.
Yeah, like we needed to be able to like show that I deserved it. And so living in that, like, I think that was like very it was very like burdening.
Yeah.
You know? Like I put myself in my own jail that I had to continually perform to gain love. And I think that even shows in my relationships now. Like I'm like always constantly like, well, do you love me? Like, do you love me? And then how do I earn that if I'm not performing? And I don't know. It's just like this weird like mix sometimes.
Yeah, because we live in a society where we have to earn everything, right? You earn raises, you earn love, you earn kindness, you earn respect, and all this stuff. And so I just wonder, you know, what does it look like, Brynn? Maybe for you, what does it look like to have fear of failure in your own life? Yeah,
I mean, I think a trend throughout my whole life has kind of been just this fear of failing others, and so I will be whoever the person in front of me wants me to be. And
the chameleon.
Yeah, totally. And so I think about like end of high school, beginning of college age for me. And that looked like a lot of like partying and like a lot of decisions with guys and things like that, where I knew that wasn't like performing well. Like I knew that was still like making mistakes, but it was me not failing the people around me. And so I think even now in relationships, it's just like, I want to make sure that I'm being the best friend, or I want to show up exactly how you need me to, out of this fear of failing what their expectations are for me in their life.
Yeah.
How has that kind of shaped a little bit of who you are? Like even now, out of high school, post college, like how has that shaped a little bit of who you are and how you see yourself?
Yeah. Honestly, there was a period when I went through Regen where honestly, I didn't know who I was. And so I think even that question, it's hard for me now because I think I had to do so much filtering through of what parts of me are because this is actually how the Lord designed me and who I am in his creation, and what parts of this is just me trying to be what everyone else wants. And so I think even still, it's just this constant check of, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I just doing this because I think you want me to, or the person across from me wants me to, or is this me genuinely living out what the Lord's calling on my life is?
That's good.
That's deep. That'll preach.
That will. Well, I'm interested, K.A.O., what do you think, some of the driving forces behind this fear of failure, in our society? There's so many reasons why we have it, right? And that makes it harder because all of a sudden we're trying to figure out, if we can get, it's like whack-a-mole, right? We get one cause of fear of failure under control, and then we have the other ones pop up. What are some that you've seen, just in general, maybe in ministry or in your own life or in the lives of people you're in community with? Yeah,
I think probably the driving force of that is I just want to belong. And so if I'm accepted and appreciated, then I feel like I'm part of a community. And then I think another one, just for me, that I've really experienced is this idea that if I prove that I have worth by my actions, then I have value, and therefore I deserve to exist. I have purpose. And especially because we are a progressive, society celebrates progression. If we continually innovate, continue to get better, society appreciates it. And so therefore we need to do more. And then therefore we fear that if we go backwards at any point, then that means we ourselves, our being, there's something wrong with us. And if society, that's just a driving force. I don't want to be looked at as either lazy or not good enough or be left behind or all those things, because then we're not going upwards, and society celebrates that. And so I think that is really what drives us there. I think ultimately the whole root of that is just I have a misplaced identity or self-worth. I'm putting it at your feet in your definition of it versus recognizing that it should go to the one who created me. But for some reason, I want your affection or your love or your praise more than I want the Lord's. And then therefore it drives me to keep doing, because it's not wrong. When I get praise from people, it's that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then therefore we almost want it more. That's good. And then when we don't get it, that's when we recognize that, I'm afraid of that. I don't like how that makes me feel.
Well, and there's a difference between needing it and wanting it.
Yes.
Those are two different things. everybody wants words of affirmation.
For sure.
Well, maybe not everybody, but most people.
Yeah.
And yet there's this other side of it that's so dark, which is the need for it.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying when I first got into ministry, I'd gotten connected with someone who had a similar job to me, just get some advice and pick their brain. And I remember her saying one of her biggest pieces of advice that stuck with me for so long is people can affirm a calling or can affirm a gifting, they can affirm it, but they can't confirm it. And so the Lord's the only one that can confirm that we have these giftings or that he's calling us to something. And so if we're always looking for people that confirm everything in our life, that's where I think those things can get messy for us.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's really good. Brynn, you're just
dropping gold here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
K.A.O., can you think of a time in your life where this was particularly hard for you?
Every day, if we're just being really honest.
Right. Yeah.
I think we are really good at faking that we don't have this fear, but I think every day. I think for me, just knowing that English isn't really my first language. It's definitely growing up in Hawaii, it's very much more slangy and pidgin, if you heard that. And so I remember even when I moved to Oklahoma, my first day, I remember I just got put into ESL classes.
Really?
And I spent the whole year being no, I know English, but I'm so confused at why I'm have been taught how to speak it again.
Yeah.
And so then I just I never wanted to fail because I didn't want to feel like I was being mistreated. And then so then that would just paralyze me. I would always want to do better, so I would stay up late or I would get like, I had to be the best. And so I would even like lose other friendships trying to get better. Like I'd put down other people so I would be better. Or I'll be very honest, I remember I sabotaged one of my friend's homework assignments.
Tell me more about that.
I desperately wanted, this is terrible.
I love it.
This is awful.
Honestly, I kind of love this.
Yeah.
This is awful. I had a friend in middle school. I was like trying to be the best in this class because I really wanted to get out of this class.
Okay.
And show that I belonged in whatever, on level class or whatever. But I was stuck in ESL classes, English as Second Language classes. And so I remember my friend was asking me for help on his homework, and I gave him all the wrong answers. And I said, oh, yeah, this is right. Trust me, I speak English. And he was like, okay. Oh, this is terrible. And so he turns in his homework assignment. He's a 0. I erased all mine, put the actual right answers, and got 100. And he that's when I got caught because he was like, he got caught because he confessed and was like, I copied his homework assignment. Why do I have a 0 and he has 100? And then that was like conflict for me because I was like, sorry, dude, I gave you the wrong ones.
Yeah. So like you actively tried to put somebody else down to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, because I was afraid of like failing in this class because I was like, I needed to be better. I needed, like you said, not wanted, I needed to be better. Because I started feeling very insecure about who I am and what the heck, like I know English, whatever, like my own identity stuff. I just moved from Hawaii to Oklahoma. It's a massive transition in general. And my dad really wasn't showing up then.
How old were you?
I was 14. Okay. So like this is 8th grade going into freshman year. Yeah. And so this was tough. That is just like I mean, the fact that I'm telling you this is really bad. But like I really wanted someone else to lose. Yeah. Because I wanted to look better.
I wish that I could tell our listeners that that's something that happens to just 14-year-olds and that we don't have to, like after you turn 15, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's not, right? Yeah. I mean, it's so common for us to look at other people who are excelling and somehow make that seem like we're failing. Mm-hmm. Like it's not, I mean, the root behind that is comparison, right? I mean, and so we're measuring our failure or our success based on who somebody else is and what they're doing. And really the truth is like if we can that's a lie that Satan puts in there. Like he's the father of lies. He wants us to buy into his lies that if somebody else is succeeding, we're failing. Yeah. And that our worth and value is tied to who we are compared to somebody else.
Yeah. Totally. Can be really honest. This actually, when you said that reminded me of something. I just had a conversation with Cassie about, my wife. Yeah, she's a CrossFit coach too. She also she has a lot of hats. And so when you go to the gym, I don't know if other people experience this, but like you go
probably. I'm guessing we do.
You go to the gym and you're like, wow, these people are yoked. Okay, they're shredded. Yeah, or they've been doing this exercise for a long time. Yeah, and then I am here being really short. We're on this rower. We're on the rowing machine. Okay. If you're a little bit taller than I am, or like average people, you actually have more drive with your legs because you just tend to be taller. Okay, yeah, leverage. Which means that you get more like calories or meters on the rower machine. Yeah. I, little short man over here, have to now do like 5 times more work to achieve the same amount it takes for you, just because of the way you are designed.
So you're getting better workouts.
That's not true. Okay. Because then that's what you think, right? And that's because I'm comparing to the other person. Yeah. I remember telling Cassie, I was like, I'm putting so much more effort, and yet it's taking me longer to do a workout than they are. And then she said, well, it's perceived effort. You have to recognize that if you're doing your best, then that's all that matters. Why are you comparing someone who's already designed differently? If you're not in the same category.
Dang.
That's so good.
And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, seriously. Like they did their perceived effort, and that's their best. And you did your perceived effort, and that's your best. So like, why are you comparing the fact that because like that doesn't work. That's so it's weird. Like it's actually non-comparison. You're unable to do that.
Well, and the truth is, you only know what their life looks like when they're on the rowing machine.
Yeah. Like just for the right?
Yeah. Like you're comparing your whole self.
Yeah, my whole identity.
I'm on a rowing machine.
Yeah, I literally walked. Sounds like such a silly illustration, but I think it just really shows like how this multiplies. But I remember walking away, being like, my day's ruined. And I'm like, I realized like I should probably just like eat like more protein or something. And Cassie's like, what are you doing? You're changing your whole life, your whole day because of one thing.
Yeah, and who knows what's going on in that guy's life? Like he could be ripped and yoked and like whatever adjective you want to use. Like he could be rowing circles around you, and his life could be a mess. Yeah. And you're allowing what he does on the rowing machine to define whether you're good or not.
Yeah,
and
like if I'm good enough.
Not that I'm hoping. I mean, that sounded like a little bit like I was hoping that guy's life is a
no,
mess.
but you're making an illustration that sometimes we're comparing. Brynn, you say this a lot. Yeah, take it away.
Well, I think sometimes we compare like our worst moments to everyone else's highlight reel.
Yeah.
And so we're like,
exactly.
We're like, man, like I feel XYZ. I'm so lonely. I'm so isolated. But look at their friend group that they have, or like, look at how successful they are in their job. And like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like more like adult examples we use with students. Like they can buy this thing, they can buy a boat. I don't know.
Like they have a home and I'm still renting.
I'm in an apartment. Yeah. And so I think what you're pointing out is that we're only seeing what they're putting out there for us.
Yeah.
And we're tiptoeing around this idea of comparison now. But I think like if we can move, Kao said this before, like if we can move from comparison to celebrating, I think that can also combat this fear of failure because we're celebrating you. We're for you and your successes. And your success doesn't mean I'm failing.
Yes.
And so if I can change that lens to be celebrating the person next to me instead of like this idea around myself, that can kind of combat that a little.
I love that concept. Like I think so much anxiety around this idea of fear of failure could be alleviated if we started to celebrate the successes of other people and realize that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Like we're a team. And so I love that what you said. And what popped into my head, and I'd love just to hear what you guys think about this, is I think a fear of failure is actually maybe a pursuit of perfection.
Absolutely.
No, it's 10,000%.
Yeah. I think something that was like pretty a harsh reality for me to face this past year is I like really identify with this fear of failure and striving for perfection. And I had to come to this like terms with, I think I also had those expectations on the people around me too, where I'm like, no, like I love people for who they are and like wherever they're at. But I was having this expectation for perfection of everyone around me. And I think even we were talking before this, and I'm surprised I'm sharing it, but I actually like haven't finished college. And I remember when all my friends, this would have been the year I would have graduated.
If you're listening, she's 22, so she's not way behind. Don't think that.
Okay. But when like all my friends, this was the class that everyone was graduating, and there was that instinct in me where I was just like, I suck. Like I'm way behind. What am I doing with my life? None of these people understand that I am in church ministry and haven't finished school.
Meanwhile, if you know Brynn, you know, like she is absolutely living out who God made her to be.
Yeah,
like she's crushing it.
Yeah.
My daughter loves her. So many of your daughters love her. And so I think that just illustrates, right? It's absolutely true. I'm not making that up. And that illustrates that we could feel like we're failing in one area because God wants us to be in another. And I think that's just an interesting, like, I'm so grateful you shared that because I think it shows other people that we can define failure, like the failures in our life are doors that open to other things.
Yeah. Well, and what are we like determining and measuring success as? Because in a world and culture term, yes, like graduating in 4 years is what success is. And I'm not like diminishing that. I think that's a huge accomplishment. But I think are we determining our success and failure by like what the Bible says that we're like called to do, or is that by like these things that were set as standards around us by the world? And
if we focus so much on the fear of failure, what we're actually saying is we actually just want the destination. We don't want the journey. And so if we could focus on the journey, like Brynn, if you were able to focus on the journey, you could see where God has you at this point. It's not about a point in time or a destination. It really is about like, where am I going? Like, where is God leading me next? And he's in control. And, you know, I think we like to live life. I heard this illustration once. I think Francis Chan did it. He's like, the whole like Jesus is my co-pilot bumper sticker.
Yeah. I've actually seen that in Fresno.
Yeah, and he's like
all over.
He's like, well, actually, most of us live like Jesus in the trunk. He said that, and he's like, but even if you're not, do you really want Jesus to be your co-pilot? Like the God of the universe is like sitting in your passenger seat, and you're like, I got this, Jesus. He's like, let Jesus.
That's some pride stuff.
And that was before Carrie Underwood put out Jesus Take the Wheel, and I'm like, that's probably
better.
Yeah, that's the
that's
the
my
goal.
go-to karaoke song.
show us. I want to hear it. I think our listeners would love. Yes.
I don't have a good voice.
So good. But I think, as we think through this idea of like fear of failure, of comparison, why is it so harmful? There's a lot of people out there who are like, yeah, I have that. And and there are positives to it.
No, for sure.
We can't just sit here and talk about fear of failure and like ignore the fact that there are positives. So let's get to the negatives after, but let's talk about the positives first, because I think we have to be honest. There are positives to being driven towards perfection. What are they?
You do a good job.
I know. I was going to say, Jordan's literally like told me before, your fear of failure kind of makes you really good at your job.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just like forces us. It's like it literally becomes the motor that drives us to do well.
Yeah.
Because of that fear, and so then therefore we get awarded.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why it's like a really bad cycle on a bad day.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And I think in relationships, like a fear of failure can look like a good thing in the sense of like, oh, I'm showing up for my friend. Like, I'm a really good friend to you. I'm whatever you want me to be.
Yeah.
And so they really like me in that moment. Like
Yeah.
I have a relationship out of that. It's not out of a good place, but for the time being, I think that can look like a good thing.
And when you do accomplish whatever you set out to, you feel fulfilled in that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's especially because we've been conditioned from an early age to want that A, or to want that award, or to win MVP, right? I mean, those are the things that drive us. It's like since we've been little, people have been putting carrots in front of us and saying you just gotta strive to get the carrot, and we're on a treadmill. And like we can't move forward. We're just the carrots out there, and we just keep running. We keep running.
And
We
there's always
keep running.
another thing.
Well, yeah. Every now and then somebody throws like a carrot at us, and we catch it, but that carrot's still out there.
Yeah.
And I think that there are positives to it, but can we accomplish that without the fear of failure? Like, can we be really good at what we do, but not define us? And I think that's the not define us by what we accomplish, or not carry around with us this fear of not being good enough. Because for me, that's what it is, right? I stand in front of, sometimes a couple thousand people on a weekend, and every time, if I'm not careful, the thoughts before I get up into that pulpit are, I just hope I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And so I think, there's that's really what drives us, is the fear that we're not good enough.
Yeah. Well, when you say that, sorry, Mike, to even go back to your point of like, feel of failure is actually.
I put a lot all in one.
Yeah, to feel of failure like actually can be really good for us. I think we have to recognize that. I think it's because we think failure is bad. Mm-hmm. When like sometimes failure just like helps reveal things we need to work on.
Yeah, the Lord's taught us all a lot, I'm sure, through the moments that we feel like we failed.
Yeah, probably the most, right?
Yeah, honestly, we recognize we are at the end of ourselves and we need to rely more on God, or we tried to be more in control. And I think the failure, it's like necessary. The valleys and the high tops is what God really needs from us.
Our insufficiency is what proves our need for God.
Yeah, like the Bible clearly says, like, in my weakness, right, He's made strong,
Totally.
And so it's like, I think we have to start with the perspective of we need to redefine what failure is. It's not bad, you know?
Yeah.
It can be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be. And it also can be bad.
Yeah.
But it's not out of, it's not
like both and.
But it's in God's control.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly.
Right? Do you trust the God of creation to actually have your best interests at heart?
Yeah, because like failure is not the end of the world.
No, it's not.
But we think it is, if I'm being really honest. That was even hard probably for us to even say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like thinking as you're saying, like, is it? I trust KO, but it's not. It's not the worst thing in the world.
No, but we believe it is.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what creates it being the bad thing for us.
So why is it so bad? Like, what are the consequences of carrying around this fear of failure, or maybe said a different way, of feeling like you're not good enough, or that you're going to let people down, and what weight does that put on our lives?
Rejection. I like when you say those things, all I think of is just like exile. Like
Tell me more about that. Like, break that down for me.
Like for me, if it's like when you're saying like feel failure, feeling not worth, like all those things, they're all in like probably in relationship. Like I'm, and so then therefore all I think of is like if I don't meet those expectations, then maybe I'm not wanted or needed, or do I even have a purpose?
Yeah.
And so all I heard was just like, you know, like exile.
Mm-hmm.
And then that like just, I think that's what, I don't know. I think I would say for me, that's probably what drives most of it is I want to do well because I just want to be loved. I just want to be like, like you're not a burden and I want you to be a part of my life. I don't know. Like, I don't know if the listeners feel the same way, but it's just like, I don't want to seem weak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Brynn, what do you think? I mean, what do you think about the negative consequences to this, like such a relevant, you know, mindset that we have?
I mean, I think like tangibly something that we don't think about even in our own fear of failure, because that's like very centered around ourselves. Like what is me failing? But I do think fear of failure can also like destroy relationships, just like our own need to be in perfection state. Or I think the way that we show up, if we're going to be authentic or if we're going to put out what we think other people need from us. And so I think pretty like real life examples can be that it can destroy some relationships around you.
Yeah.
If that's what's like ruling you.
And it's not just relationships. It's not just our own emotions. It's actually physically too. I was talking with Ashley Berry. She's on staff here. She's our controller. She's fantastic and a faithful listener of the WellCast.
Let's go.
But I was talking with her and we were talking about stress, like stress management. And listen, stress is the number one revealer of a fear of failure.
Totally.
Like, I mean, if you're feeling stressed, it's because it's because you have something to do that you feel like if you don't do it right, it will let somebody else down who you respect and care about, or at the very least, like are accountable to. And so I was talking to her about stressful things, and she's like, I get stressed. And she's like, but I've learned the ability to like turn it off. And I was like, what is that like?
What? Yeah.
It's amazing.
I was like, I literally looked at her. I'm like, what is that like? Like, how
do you just like hit a button? And
yeah.
it's
Like,
gone?
well, I think she works harder than than that. But I just remember going, I'm an achiever. Like, I think we all know that, right? I mean, Jordan makes fun of me all the time because I can't turn it off.
Yeah.
Like, and I carry around this level of anxiety in my life that realistically, like it's crippling sometimes. I described it yesterday to Ashley. I feel like I'm always in fight or flight mode, like always.
Wow.
And even when I'm resting, I'm like trying to be the best at rest, and it's so
Best at rest.
It's so tiring.
Yeah.
And there's anxiety, and then there's physical, responses. Like I have stiff necks all the time. Like our wholeness is connected.
Yeah.
So our soul is connected to our emotions, is connected to our brain, which is connected to our bodies. And stress and this fear of failure puts weight and tension on it all.
Yeah.
And so how do we, I'm going to ask a question that I don't think any of us are experts at.
Yeah.
But how do we combat this fear of failure? Like where do we go? Because I read in Psalm 23.
Yep.
And it shares a desire that I think God has for us that I do, if I'm honest, I don't delight in as often as I should. I mean, he says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So first step, right? I mean, like I
provided for you.
Whatever he gives me is what I need. And then he says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. And I'm like, God, if you make me lie down in a green pasture, I'm going to be there for like 2.5 seconds. I'll do it because you told me. But then I got plans. Like I got stuff to do. He leads me beside still waters.
Yeah.
He restores my soul. How many of us need a restored soul?
Yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah.
And it's just this idea of rest and trust and who God is. Like he is our shepherd. And so, based on Psalm 23 or anything else that you guys have, what are some ways that our listeners can combat this fear of failure?
I'm for Psalm 23.
Yeah.
Because of the picture that it paints for us of just like refreshing.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I'm still striving and trying to have worth in what I do a lot of the times, not recognizing and living in how I am designed and who I am to be because of the way the Lord's doing in me. But I think what I'm trying to do, how's that?
That's great.
What I'm trying to do is recognize that I can sit still. I don't have to earn the Lord's favor or love because it's already given. I can't take something that's already given. I don't have to earn something if it's already given. And so I'd say for me, I'm trying to remember that, right? Just remembering that like God's asking me to lay down. So I can't tell you something that I do. Brynn's heard it. I just lay down in my driveway at the end of work. I'll lay down in my driveway. It's grounding.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Literally.
Like people probably don't have time for that, but I wonder like if we made time to actually center ourselves in Lord. I lay down in my driveway and I look up. And like when I look up, it's like everything about my world is very tiny in comparison to what the Lord's doing. And so I should rest in the fact that he's still moving even when I'm sitting.
Yeah.
And he's got everything in control.
By the way, did you guys see that telescope that came out a few weeks ago?
With all the galaxies? Yeah. Yes, I saw that on Twitter. And I was
How
like,
big
wow.
is God? I love what you just shared. I mean, the ability to just take a moment.
Yeah.
Throughout your day, several moments, right?
Yeah.
And just center yourself on who we are compared to who God is.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think two things come to mind. One is like all throughout scripture, there's like identities given to us by the Lord. I know for me, like I take a lot of peace in the fact that all throughout scripture it says I'm delighted in, which like comes from this idea of who I already am, like not what I'm doing. The Lord delights in me. And I feel like fear of failure is a lot of like, I have to earn this. And so just to leave it at that, like, oh, the Lord delights in me. Like he's not looking down disappointed in me, has helped me a lot. But I think also, and this isn't in the sense of like people being that affirmation for us, but I do think in community in a healthy way, you can like ask those around you who love the Lord to point you to that truth. And something I've been trying to be better at is with like a trusted mentor or like a few of my like girlfriends that are my people, just saying like, hey, right now I'm believing that like I'm failing at my job, or like right now I'm believing that I'm not going to be good enough for anyone, or like no one loves me, or whatever that is. Like I feel like I could list a lot of things, but having people in my life who love me and love the Lord, and not asking in like a codependent way where they're the only way I get that, but for them in that moment to be like, hey, can I tell you what I see in your life? And can I point you to scripture when you're not feeling the motivation to do that for yourself? Has been like really healing for me. And there's a vulnerability in that, in letting people know that side of you. That's like the fears that you're having. But I think that's been something that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think asking the question, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah. What is it?
I mean,
that'll preach.
I mean, we fill in the blanks all the time, right? Like,
yeah.
And I honestly, I'm just telling you, I there's no fault of anyone else, just my own expectations. I'm crippled by the expectations other people don't have of me. Like,
I love you said don't have of
me. Because I think you thought I was gonna say other people have
I was
me.
expecting that.
But I just think, if I'm honest, like and I'm trying to sort through it in my own life, but I think I often put other people's expectations in their own mouths.
Yeah.
Like they don't actually have those expectations of me. Like, does the Well expect for me to do a good job? Yeah. Do they expect for me to be perfect or nail every single deadline? No. And I think I start to define myself by literally these lies, these expectations that other people have. And so asking like two questions: what is true, and what's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. And I think I'm definitely not an expert. I'm still trying to figure it out. And even this week is a really hard week to even talk about fear of failure, because I'm probably at one of the heights that I've been in a long time. And yet I just go, in what areas am I creating more fear for myself? Yeah. Like, we just don't have to live in that fear, because God says the perfect love casts out fear. And so, what if I have to fear a relationship that I have with a boss or a coworker or a spouse, if I have to fear that me letting them down one time will drastically change this relationship, then I think I have the wrong picture, and I'm starting to live out of lies instead of living out of truth.
And sometimes I think something you can kind of ask yourself in those moments too is like, who am I making the main character in this story right now? And for me, like, very honestly, I can have such a selfish picture in that. Like, I'm the main character here. These people have these expectations on me because I am this big deal. And it's like, okay, like, chill out, girlfriend. Like, humble yourself. If Jesus is the center of the story and he's the main character, it helps us to not have this like idea of the expectations everyone has on us, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's good. Well, I will, if you're listening, I think you got a few nuggets to help process through a lifelong fight.
Yeah.
And we're there with you. We're dealing with it just like you are. And I think there's a comfort in knowing we're not alone. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully we talked about a little bit of a, practical game plan for what it looks like to deal with this fear of failure. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll see you back here next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the WellCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Community Church, visit thewellcommunity.org.